Today we're looking at tenses again, past tenses, and once again I've taken this from English File, my favourite book. It's the my favourite English learning book for students, where it's a systematic course. So here we have narrative tenses, which is in chapter 2b of English File Upper Intermediate. And so we're just going to go through some of these questions, and I'm going to try and justify why I choose different tenses, different past tenses, because they're giving you clues in the questions, and quite often these clues are very useful. So looking at this one, his English was very good. He had been learning it for 5 years. And by the way, we're only going to use had done and had been doing, past perfect simple and past perfect continuous in this first exercise. So my feet were aching. We've got to use the word queue, which means to stand in a line. If some of you aren't sure what that verb means, it means to stand in a line. Now, because queue is a dynamic verb, it takes a very long time. It's not a stative verb. Yeah, it doesn't describe a state. We say, my feet were aching. We had been queuing for hours. We use the past perfect continuous. It happened for a very long time. And this is an active verb. Sorry, it's a dynamic verb, not a stative verb. Sorry about the airplane, guys. Look at number 2 now. She went to the police because someone... Now, notice, when did this stealing happen? It happened before she went to the police. It was earlier than she went to the police. So this is why we need past perfect. But is steal something that happens like that? Or is it something that happens over the period of a long period of time? Of course, it doesn't take a long time. And this is why we don't say had been stealing. We say because someone had stolen her bag. Okay. Number 3, the streets were wet. Now, how long does it take to rain? I think you'll all agree with me that it actually takes a long time when it rains. It's not normally for 1 second that it rains. It rains for 15 minutes or an hour or 3 hours. And for this reason, we use the past perfect continuous. We say had been raining all morning. Yeah, the streets were wet. Why? Because it already had been raining for many hours. And it's to go back before it was wet. Yeah, we need to go back before that verb was. We're earlier than that verb, and that's why we need past perfect. So she got to work late in the morning. She got to work late because she had an accident on the way. We need past perfect, had. And yes, 2 hads are fine in English. You can even find some sentences where you can put 14 hads in a row and it still makes sense. You can go to my video on that if you want. Just type in had, Mr. Skype Lessons, and you will find a sentence with many hads all in a row that still makes sense. So because she had an accident, have is a stative verb. When you mean have an accident, you never say I am having an accident. Yeah, you say I had an accident. It's a stative verb here, in the same way that have a brother or have a sister is a stative verb. And for that reason, it's had and not had been having. Okay, number 5, I almost didn't recognize him. Why? Because he had changed a lot since I last saw him. Now, we want had changed and not had been changing because it's the result that's important. You didn't recognize him. And when it's the result that's important, use perfect simple and not perfect continuous. Result is perfect simple. If you focus on the action, especially the duration of the action, then you use past perfect continuous. But if you focus on the result of the action, then you use past perfect simple. Okay, number 6, they were very red. Why? Because they had been sunbathing all morning. It takes a long time to sunbathe, and it's very active sunbathe. It's not a stative verb. But they hadn't put on any sun cream. Put on sun cream is just like that. It's quick. It's a quick thing to put on sun cream. It doesn't take 15 minutes or anything like that. So because put on any sun cream, and again, I could argue that it's the result that's important. They were very red. Why? Because they hadn't put on any sun cream. Yeah, and they had been sunbathing all morning. Okay, I could see from their faces that my parents had been arguing. Yeah, and here I could see from their faces that my parents had been arguing. We use this perfect continuous again because argue is an active verb. It's a very dynamic verb. And so I could see from their faces that my parents, you could actually say had argued. I'm not going to say had argued is wrong here. It's not. Then you're focusing on the result. But I think here you're focusing on the duration of the action. They had been arguing for so long that you could even see on their faces that they had been arguing. Okay, Jess had a bandage on her arm. She had fallen off her bike. Not had been falling, because that sounds like it happened over a long time again, but had fallen off her bike the day before. Okay, I'll quickly see to see if anybody's got any questions. No questions at all from anybody today. Bit boring for me. I can't answer your questions then, guys. I think a lot of people complain that I don't answer their questions throughout my day when they put something on YouTube. Well, I'm really angry with YouTube, so I ain't going to answer many questions on YouTube, but I will answer your questions if you're live and I can see that your question comes up here. So this is the time to ask questions, guys, during the live class. But yeah, let's get back to the next one. So she had fallen off her bike the day before. Let's now go over to part B, and we've got to decide which tense to use. So Meg and Liam McGowan got a nasty surprise when they were checking in at Heathrow Airport and not had checked in. When they were checking in the middle of checking in at Heathrow Airport, they got a nasty surprise. So past continuous, were checking in with their baby Sean. They had won and not won. This is earlier in the story. This is before they got to the airport. They had won 3 free plane tickets to Rome in a competition, and they had been looking forward to their trip 4 months. And it's the 4 months that really necessitates had been looking forward to and not were looking forward to. Yeah. And they had been looking forward to their trip for months. It's this 4 that requires the perfect tense. So do learn your signal words. But unfortunately, they had forgotten. Yeah. We want to focus on the result of had forgotten. They don't have the passport, and you don't say had been forgetting. It's a stative verb. You can't say I am forgetting. You say I forgot, or I forget what his name is. You don't say I am forgetting. So forget is a stative verb. You can't use it in continuous tenses. You can't say I am forgetting. You can't say I was forgetting. You can't say I had been forgetting. Okay. Luckily, they had arrived. Again, this is earlier than the airport that we spoke about at the start. So luckily, they had arrived very early for their flight. So they still had time to do something about it. Okay, is this the next thing in the story, or is it something that happened earlier in the story? Answer, it's the next thing in the story. They ran to the police station in the airport, yeah? So this is in the airport, and it's the next thing, and that's why it's past simple. They ran to the police station in the airport to apply for an emergency passport. Meg went with Sean to the photo machine while Liam was filling in, yeah? So she went to the photo machine while Liam was in the middle of filling in the forms. The passport was ready in an hour, so they hurried back to check-in and finally caught their flight. Notice that this is the next thing, then the next thing, then the next thing. And that's why it's past simple, past simple, past simple. Okay, I hope that's all clear. I hope past tenses are becoming a little bit easier. Please ask, because I'm well aware that sometimes, you know, you try to explain a tense and people have another way of looking at it. And so please do say if you disagree with one of my answers. I'd like to hear about it. Okay, so thanks everybody for watching. Do appreciate your support, and I hope to see you all soon.